Title: Understanding Exposure Balancing Aperture, Shutter Speed and ISO.
Modul: Camera Fundamentals.
Every great photograph begins with one essential goal: achieving the right exposure. Exposure is the amount of light that reaches your camera's image sensor. Too much light and the image becomes overexposed, losing detail in the brightest areas. Too little light and the image becomes underexposed, causing shadows to lose important information. But exposure is more than a technical requirement. In fine art figure photography, it is one of the photographer's most powerful creative tools. It influences mood, emotion, texture, and the overall visual impact of an image. Exposure is controlled by three camera settings working together: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These three settings are often called the exposure triangle. Understanding how they interact is one of the most important skills every photographer can develop. Imagine these three settings as partners. If you change one, at least one of the others usually needs to change as well to maintain the same overall exposure. Suppose you decide to use a wide aperture to create a beautifully blurred background. Because more light enters the camera through the larger opening, you may need a faster shutter speed or a lower ISO to prevent the image from becoming too bright. On another day, you may wish to photograph a figure during sunset using only natural light. Since there is less available light, you might slow the shutter speed, raise the ISO, or open the aperture wider. Each decision affects not only brightness but also the artistic appearance of the photograph. This is why exposure is never simply about making an image brighter or darker. Every adjustment has creative consequences. A wider aperture creates shallower depth of field. A slower shutter speed introduces motion blur. A higher ISO increases light sensitivity, but may also introduce digital noise. Learning exposure means learning how to balance these creative choices, according to your artistic vision. Many modern cameras include automatic exposure modes that calculate settings for you. While these modes are useful, they cannot understand your creative intention. The camera does not know whether you want soft motion, dramatic shadows, or maximum sharpness. Those decisions belong to the photographer. One helpful tool found in every digital camera is the histogram. Rather than judging exposure only by looking at the camera screen, the histogram provides a graphical representation of brightness levels throughout the image. It helps you identify whether highlights are becoming overexposed or shadows are losing detail. In fine art photography, preserving detail is often important because subtle tonal transitions contribute to elegance and depth. Skin tones, delicate shadows, and gentle highlights all benefit from careful exposure. However, perfect technical exposure is not always the artistic goal. Some photographers intentionally create darker images to evoke mystery or intimacy. Others intentionally expose brightly to create softness and purity. As long as these choices are made deliberately, they become part of the artistic language rather than technical mistakes. This is an important distinction. An accidental overexposed image is a technical error. An intentionally bright image that supports the artistic concept is a creative decision. The same principle applies to darker photographs. As you gain experience, exposure becomes increasingly intuitive. Instead of thinking about numbers, you begin thinking about feeling. You ask yourself questions such as, do I want this image to feel peaceful, dramatic, delicate, powerful? Your camera settings become tools for expressing those emotions. One of the best ways to practice is by photographing the same subject, using different exposure combinations. Notice how changing the aperture affects depth of field. Observe how shutter speed changes the feeling of movement. Compare the image quality at different ISO settings. These simple exercises build confidence and deepen your understanding. Ultimately, mastering exposure is not about memorizing formulas. It is about learning how light behaves and how your creative decisions shape the final photograph. The camera records the light. The photographer decides what that light will say. And when aperture, shutter speed, and ISO work together in harmony, exposure becomes more than a technical process, it becomes the foundation of artistic expression.